Greetings to everybody. We are studying from the talks on Gita by Vinobha Bhave. In one of his books, Swami Vivekananda talks about this inner frequencies of Sat, Rajas and Tamas, which we all talk about. When our inner frequency gets affected by the external vibrations, we fall apart. When the frequency of balance is disturbed, thereby other frequencies automatically get disturbed, where we lose peace, we lose emotional stability, we lose our courage and clarity. Thereby, we fall apart. These frequencies are composed of three forces in Sanskrit. And it is known as Sat, Rajas, and Tamas. There are frequencies of our field which are manifested in the physical world and which is known as equilibrium, activity, and inertness. This is what it is. Sat means equilibrium, a state of balance. Rajas is a state of activity, and tamas is inertness. And tamas is known as a darkness, it's inactivity. And rajas is expressed as attraction or repulsion. And sat is the balance, the equilibrium of two. And we all have a combination of these activities to remain in the state of the inner equilibrium, which is the state of Sat, is the purpose of meditation. We meditate, so we remain in that state of equilibrium, in a state of balance. So we know how to manage the activity part and the inertness part, because all exists in the human beings. And we try to avoid inactivity. And according to Swami Vivekananda, activity also means to resist negative things from the external world. Resist evil, mental and physical. And when we have succeeded in resisting them, calmness will come. So that means an action that is performed in equilibrium will give us the right results, which they are talking about akarma. An action performed in a state of equilibrium will not let you be attached to the fruit of that action. You are not worried about the action, but you are in a state of remembrance performing it. And also, Swami Vivekananda says you don't negate life like how people assume sanyasa. He says until we fulfill our desire and pass through the activity, it is impossible for us to come to a state of calmness, serenity, and self-surrender. So Karma Yoga is not shunning life. A lot of times people think that we have to act, we should not expect results. It is nothing of that sort. Even in the spiritual journey, we understand this fact. Until we are saturated with a particular state of being, even at first point, we cannot really move to the next. So also, when you just live in that state of remembrance and enjoy everything that is in front of you, whether it's your wife, your child, your food, your life, your friends, your job, there's nothing wrong in it. So he's trying to correct the way we are thinking about Karma Yoga. It is to live naturally, but we perform with divine remembrance. So we are not attached to the result of that action. We are neither taking blame nor credit. So it becomes a divine action. How does that work? In the mundane level of a mother, you put so much work on your children. One child is very successful, one is not. You did your part. But a lot of times we take credit for the successful child, we take blame for the child that is not successful. Neither is correct. This is where they are trying to guide us into the action. Each soul comes with its own destiny, with its own journey. Everything in nature is guided by the ultimate principle. In this process, like a sun shining, it does its job. It doesn't think it is waking up the birds or waking us up or giving us heat. It is rotating in its axis, being in its nature. That is Karma Yoga. So it is to live life naturally but perform with divine remembrance. So we are not attached to the result of that action. So it becomes a divine action. So for us in the heartfulness method, we perform every action in divine remembrance. And since we are connected to the highest consciousness of the living guide, we connect to this field and perform the action. And when Babuji calls constant remembrance, we don't need to worry about the attachment to action. In remembrance, the frequency naturally it moves to a state of equilibrium. So the action becomes noble and right action automatically. So that is where the masters are guiding us, and we will continue to understand what Vinobha Bhave has to say. We will start with the last paragraph so we have some more understanding. To act and still not be the doer is one aspect, while the other aspect is to make the world act without doing anything oneself. This is the state of masters. They make us act, but when you look at them, they are just still. They're not doing anything. Anybody looked at Babuji, he was just sitting in his recliner. But he said, I could spin the universe like a top. His work was going on. In this state, there is immense power to impel others to act. This is the beauty of akarma. It is packed with power that is capable of infinite work. It is like steam, which, when compressed, does enormous work. It can then easily move big trains. The sun also does not work outwardly, but still works around the clock and is not aware of doing anything. Working day and night and still not doing anything outwardly is its one aspect, and setting in motion an infinite number of actions without doing anything outwardly is another aspect. This is the twofold splendor of sannyasa. We are reading from page 85. Both the aspects are far from the ordinary. In one aspect, the action is manifest and the state of akarma is hidden. In the other aspect, the state of akarma is manifest, yet endless activity is continuously going on. In this state, akarma is packed with power, resulting in enormous work. This state of akarma is diametrically different from laziness. See, Babuji was not doing anything but was doing. That is not the state of thumb. The thumb in the highest state is the state of the masters. A lazy man easily gets tired and bored, but a sannyasi in the state of akarma concentrates his energy inside. He does no work physically, but still he inspires work in enormous measures. Suppose one gets angry with us. If it is because of our fault, we go to pacify him. But he refuses to talk to us. How great is the effect of his keeping mum, of this renunciation of the action of speaking. Another man in the same situation may pour abuse on us. Both are angry, but one keeps mum and the other speaks out. Both are reactions expressing anger. Keeping mum is also an expression of anger, and it too works. When a mother or father stops speaking to the child, its impact on the child is far more decisive than that of any actions. Silence can have an effect which speaking never can have. Such is the state of a knowledgeable person. His akarma duty, his being still, accomplishes much. It generates power. So they are in that state of remembrance, in the state of Sat, and yet action happens. While being in the state of Akarma, he does work that no activity can accomplish. This is another type of sannyasa. In such type of sannyasa, all enterprise, all frenetic efforts cease. Sant Tukaram describes that state as, now all enterprise, all activity has ceased. The body is lying like a little sack at the feet of the Lord. All care is over. I now feel assured that I shall not be born again. I have not to live now on my own strength, as the Lord has emptied me of my ego. I am no more master of my life. It is His power that moves me. I have been reduced to zero. Tukaram is empty. His sense of I has dissolved, but there is tremendous power in that emptiness. So, this Daji gives an example as the center of the tornado. There is nothing. Outside, everything is chaos. But in the center, there is nothing, vacuum. And that vacuum has the power for everything. So, this inner centeredness, equilibrium, the state of Sat, is what we are striving for when we are meditating. The sun gives call to no one yet. When it rises, birds soar in the sky, lamps begin to prance around, cows head for grazing, shopkeepers open their shops, farmers start out towards their farms. The whole world is on the move as the sun makes its appearance on the horizon. Its mere existence is enough. That gives rise to innumerable activities. Its state of akarma has potentiality to stimulate those activities. It is packed with power. Such is the wonder of sannyasa. So Vinobha Bhave is correcting the concepts of Hindu philosophy, because when we look at sannyasa, we look at it as like you renounce life. You look at brahmacharya as you renounce sexual life. They're saying no. It is integrating and being in a state of equilibrium and living life from that state where action becomes automatic, a divine action. To compare the two is beyond the power of words. In the 5th chapter, these two forms of sannyasa are compared with each other. In one form, nothing is done while doing work 24 hours a day. There is an inaction within. And in the other, there is no actual action even for a moment, but still everything is done. It is caused to be done. The former shows how one could speak while being silent within, and the later shows how one could be outwardly silent and still communicate. Now there is a comparison between the two. To have a look at them, think over them, ruminate over them, there is a sheer bliss, rare joy in doing so. In fact, this whole matter is incomparably novel and noble. The idea of sannyasa is indeed grand and sacred. How thankful should we be to him who first thought of such a sublime idea? This idea, one may say, is the highest point reached by human imagination and reason, although man has been and is even now trying for higher and higher flight. As far as I know, it is the highest point reached by man's intellect and his power of thought. There is a rare joy in the very contemplation of this idea. The joy recedes when one steps into the domain of speech and of everyday life. One then feels like having fallen down. I am never tired of talking to my friends about this idea. For years I have been meditating over it. Words fail in describing it. It is clearly beyond the reach of words. Doing everything without action and doing nothing while ceaselessly acting. How noble, enchanting, and poetic the idea is. What more can poetry offer? compared with the joy, order, inspiration, and exaltation embodied in this idea, the most highly praised poetry pales into insignificance. The fifth chapter has thus been raised to a very high plane. The fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Karma and Vikarma have been explained up to the fourth chapter, and then the fifth chapter has soared sky high. In this chapter, two forms of the state of akarma have been directly compared with each other. Language falls short in this attempt. Who is a greater karma yogi or a sannyasi? It is impossible to say who works more. In fact, remaining inwardly inactive while doing everything and doing everything while outwardly remaining inactive, both are forms of yoga. But for the purpose of comparison, one is called yoga, the other is called sanyasa. How are we to compare the two? It will have to be done with the help of some analogies. While doing so, one does have a feeling of falling down from the high altitude of these ideas, but it cannot be helped. In fact, absolute karma sannyasa and absolute karma yoga are ideas too magnificent to be manifested in a living person. These ideals cannot be fully realized when one is confined within the body. An attempt to leave these ideals here in this world would shatter the body. Hence, we have to take illustrations from the lives of great men who had realized these ideals to the extent possible. Analogies are never perfect, but for the time being, one has to assume that they are. It is said in geometry, let ABC be a triangle. Why is the word let used here? Because the lines forming the triangle are not really lines according to the definition of a line. A line by definition has length but no breadth. How to draw such a line on a blackboard? Breadth invariably accompanies length whenever one attempts to draw a line. Hence, one had to use the word let. One has to assume that what has been drawn is a line. Is it not the same applicable in the science of devotion? There too, the devotee says, let this tiny image be the Lord of the universe. We say we begin with the supposition that the divine light is there in the heart, like that. If someone calls it idiocy, you may ask him, is there idiocy in geometry? We are seeing quite a thick line, and you are asking us to assume that it has no breadth. Just as certain postulates are made in geometry, certain postulates are made in Bhakti Sutra too, the sutras of devotion. It asks us to assume that there is divine in an image. If one says divinity is indestructible, but the image could break on being hit, it would not be a thoughtful statement. If postulates are valid in geometry, why cannot they be so in divine sutras? Geometry asks us to assume a point also. Definition of a point is akin to that of the ultimate, the Brahman. A point is defined as having neither length nor breadth nor thickness. It is without any dimension. Still, we try to draw it on a blackboard. What we draw is practically a circle, but it is assumed to be a point. A true triangle and a true point exist only in definitions. Yet we have to proceed on the assumption that they actually exist. In Divine Sutra, Bhakti Sutra 2, we have to postulate the existence of the indestructible, all-pervading divine in an image. That is why all the masters give us the technique that there is the source of light is present within our heart. What the Mimasakas, adherents of the system of Mimasa, have done in this context is striking. Vedas refer to different deities like Indra, fire, the god of rain and water. While on the subject of these deities, a question is asked: what does Indra look like? What is his nature? Where does he reside? And the Mimasakas answered, the word Indra is itself the form of Indra. He resides in the word Indra. Same is true with the god of rain or the god of fire. The words made up of certain syllables arranged in a certain order are the forms of the deities. The deities are not apart from these words. The concept of the deities having the form of words is indeed fascinating. That is why in India they meditate on this sound of Om. In fact, the concept of the deities cannot be contained in any form. It cannot be adequately described. Letters comprising the words may therefore be taken as adequate representation. What is divine God like? The answer is it is like the word God containing the words God. The most striking example of this letter is Om. Om means divine. A term of divinity has thus been coined. It is necessary to coin such terms for great ideas which cannot be contained in any concrete material form. It is man's strong and earnest desire which makes him invent symbolic forms for them. The sannyasi and the yogi are like Shuka and Janaka. These are sages. Sannyasa and yoga represent the highest flights of the human spirit. Sannyasa and yoga are ideals which are impossible to attain in their fullness within the confines of the body, but human thought can rise to such heights. A true yogi and a true sannyasi will exist only in definitions. The ideals will always be beyond outreach. But we have to take as examples persons who have approximated the ideals and say on the lines of geometry. Let so and so be taken as perfect yogi and so be taken as perfect sannyasi. While talking about sannyasa, the names Shuka and Yajnavalka are usually mentioned. As examples of Karma Yogi, Raja Janak and Lord Krishna have been mentioned in the Gita itself. Lokamanya Tilak has listed a number of yogis and sannyasis in his treatise Gita Rahasya. He has written that King Janaka, Lord Krishna, took the path of Karma Yoga, while Shuka and Yajnavalka took the path of sannyasa. But these two paths are not mutually exclusive. Janaka, the Karma Yogi, was a disciple of Yajnavalka. The sannyasi and Shuka, a disciple of Janaka, took the path of sannyasa. What this means is that yogis and sannyasis are part of the same chain. Yoga and sannyasa constitute a single order. They're not mutually exclusive paths. We will stop here and continue.